This week on Motoring 90.
Originally, I just wanted all my money out of this. Now I want my money, plus I want to see something done with him, you know, something to prevent this happening, you know, to someone else.
The driver is truly seated in the lap of luxury when behind the wheel of a Lexus. Everything with the exception of the rear view mirror is power operated.
Motoring 90 is brought to you by Quaker State. The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.
Recognize these pylons? Well, if you watch the program each week, you probably do, because they are used in our test drive segment as Graham Fletcher scrutinizes the new models. Well, we've got a real treat for you this week, because later he is going to test drive the brand new 1990 Lexus 400. Some are calling it the car of the year. And we're also going to take you behind the scenes as they shoot test drive. And they tell me things get a little hectic out here, and you've got to watch yourself, because you never know when Graham Fletcher is going to come flying by like he just did. But that's later on. Up first, we're going to join Sandra Neal, and she has a story about a unique auto body shop that specializes both in cars and people.
At first glance, Call Auto Collision looks like every other body shop. But a closer look inside and you'll find a car repair center that doubles as a classroom. Their slogan is "Learn a Job." And here, men and women out of work or just plain out of luck learn the skills that could get them employment. These students are halfway through their 26-week auto collision or welding program. They're mostly visible minorities with little or no work experience. Still major stumbling blocks when it comes to employment in this country. But today, these trainees are hoping this course will change their lives, as instructor Joe Churko lends a hand.
What CALL is a training. It's a training facility, basically. What CALL stands for is the Center for Advancement of Work and Living. We have a residence that some of the trainees stay in if they don't have a place to stay. They all have counselors. If they have a problem or something like that, then they can talk to their counselors or the instructors, like myself, for example.
These students here are known as being severely employment disadvantaged. What does that mean? Well,
they have either a physical handicap, a mental handicap. They don't want to show up for work. You know, there's a problem at home. You know, there's a problem there someplace.
How do you straighten them out then?
Very carefully. But when they first come into this body course, they learn how to weld. Okay, they learn how to use the MIG, spot welder, and oxyacetylene welders. Okay, from there they'll start to form panels, and we'll see how they make out on making a patch for that fender first. And once we see that they've gone to that step, they've gone past that step, and they can repair that panel, then we'll put them on a car. Everything here is hands-on training, and we also have a classroom that they learn math, English, the basic essentials to be able to get by in a body shop.
Merle, what about you? Like when you leave the CALL program, what do you see yourself doing?
Well, I've been looking at some community college courses in the same program of welding.
Today, the classroom lesson is about resumes and how students like Merrill Roberts can market his newfound skill.
This is the first time I've concentrated my efforts on a trade, and I like the trade. I like working with welding, the metal, fabrication, fitting, and I'm doing good here.
Is there a job market out there for your welders?
There's a very large job market. Normally, we will get them out perhaps on a job assessment, 1 week, 2 weeks. That way they can come back with things that they want to brush up on, and perhaps a small chat with the employer saying he's weak or strong in these areas as well.
What type of money are we talking about?
Oh, the average welder can expect, basic welder can expect about $10 to start, which is not bad. $9, $10.
You teach them a lot more than welding here, though, don't you?
Yes, we get involved in all aspects of life skills and punctuality and attendance. Like, never mind trying to teach them some welding. You know, just real basic life skills are so important here.
Do you find you're almost like a father to these men and women?
Sometimes, yeah, but you got to try not to get too personally involved with them because you don't sleep at night.
Joe, do you find that some of the clients that come to the Call Collision Shop are surprised that this is doubling as a school as well?
Oh yes, exactly. They're really amazed that the quality and the workmanship that comes out here is so high. They expect it to be a hack shop type thing, but it isn't at all. Everything is quality and supervised 100%.
My confidence has gone up dramatically. Yeah, I can do the work with no problem. Well, I'm hired here, so I plan to stay here if they want me here.
So what does it feel like knowing that you've got a full-time job waiting for you?
It feels wonderful.
Carmen, did anybody call yet from her in Pontiac Buick? No. With regards to Alan? No, they haven't.
While the students keep busy in the shop, Anne-Marie Power spends her time in the office, contacting clients who could be interested in hiring. And she says that most called trainees do get a job.
I would say probably closer to the 80% mark. A lot of people don't end up just in jobs afterwards, but they end up in training or apprenticeships and things like that. And for us, we consider that a positive outcome for our clients.
Is it a gratifying experience for you to be able to place these students?
Definitely. Definitely is. I think it gives you a sense of usefulness and success on your own part in your own career.
Matthew, tell us what you're working on.
I'm working on the Jeep on the headlight. It was damaged and now replacing the parts. And it should be ready for painting that by next week.
I hear you're one of the superstars here. Tell us what you've learned.
I learned everything since I'm here. I worked in another body shop before, but since I'm here, I learned more.
What are you going to do when you finish with this course?
When I finish in this course, I'll go put my tow truck back on the road. And I'll go come back and see if they need anybody for towing.
Good for you. What are you going to do with all your money?
I think I will take early retirement.
Call Auto Collision is a non-profit organization. It receives funding from government agencies and the United Way. If you'd like more information on the program, you can write to us at Motoring 90. Our address is 379 Danforth Avenue, Toronto, Ontario. Postal code M4K 1P1. Until next week, I'm Sandra Neal for Motoring 90.
Next on Motoring 90, a Canadian premiere for the Lexus. Test Drive with Graham Fletcher.
With me now, the guy who almost ran me over at the top of the show, Graham Fletcher. And Graham, normally I don't join you on Test Drive, but you were telling me earlier this is a very special week.
Yep, this week we're going to be looking at the Lexus LS400, which is going to take on some pretty hefty competition. A lot of people are pushing it as the BMW Beta or the Mercedes-Benz Beta. I'm looking really forward to getting down and seeing what this thing can perform like.
It gets a little dicey out there, doesn't it?
Yeah, we try and play it safe. I mean, I take my hat off to the cameramen because they have to have implicit faith in what I'm doing. We almost lost one guy. We were off-roading one day and we hung him up in a tree, which he came home safely, but I don't think his wife was too happy with him left dangling there.
Is it a real team effort between you and the cameraman as far as which shots you want?
Oh yeah, I know roughly what I want to shoot, and he puts the creativity and the angles and everything else together.
Graham, I know you're anxious to test drive the Lexus, so it's all yours.
Thanks, Brad. See you later.
The driver is truly seated in the lap of luxury when behind the wheel of a Lexus. Everything with the exception of the rear view mirror is power operated. This includes the 8-way seats, windows and door locks, and even the tilt and telescopic steering wheel, which automatically moves out of the way to aid entry and exit, is power operated. As you might expect, the Lexus has a phone. The fact that it can be operated from the steering wheel is a definite plus. By depressing different buttons, you can access one of 12 pre-programmed numbers without the need to handle a handset. The instrument cluster is one of the high points of the car. All is black until the key is turned on. First come the pointers, then the warning lights, followed by the analog instrumentation. The real surprise is the 3D effect that this format generates. Beneath the hood sits a state-of-the-art multi-valve V8 engine that does as it is directed with minimum fuss and maximum efficiency. All 250 horsepower and 260 pounds-feet of torque are delivered in a smooth yet convincing manner through an electronically controlled 4-speed automatic transmission. The driver can select either power or normal modes. Power equates to faster acceleration because each gear is held to redline at wide open throttle and kickdowns are initiated more readily. The normal mode prompts earlier shifts for improved economy. We managed to motivate this heavy car to 100 kilometers an hour in a little over 8.5 seconds. The ABS system certainly had the desired effect when the anchor was dropped. Even in the slippery conditions we encountered, the stops were short, precise and very predictable. The suspension is supple enough to offer superb comfort, yet firm enough to handle spirited driving with surprising predictability for such a large car. Top marks go to the Lexus for its pylon performance. While there was some body roll, it was controlled and easily managed. If there is a drawback with the Lexus, it is that the styling cues are stilted too far towards those of a Mercedes-Benz. A little more individualism in the looks would have been a big plus, especially given its prowess in the ride handling and performance areas. My pet peeve is not with the car, it's with the company. The fact is that by the time September arrives, they will have had this car in the US for 9 months, and it would have been a much more amicable solution to have had a universal launch so that we got the benefit of the car at the same time the Americans did. Now to the scoreboard and see how I rated the rest of the 1990 Lexus. I pushed this car through the pylons as hard as any car tested, and the results were impressive to say the least. Agility and comfort have been combined to produce the consummate handler. The ABS system used on this car is superb. Even in the slippery conditions we encountered, the ABS function hauled the car to a halt in short order. We recorded stopping distances of just over 110 feet. The Lexus turned in sprint times of around 8.5 seconds. You'll be hard-pressed to beat this kind of performance no matter the size of the buck you're prepared to spend. The Lexus offers a very serene ride. Only a slight whistle from the sunroof was evident at high speeds. We averaged a thirsty 16.1 litres per 100 kilometres or 17.5 miles per gallon. The Lexus LS400 is a fine automobile and is sure to be of great interest to all makers of luxury cars. Even Mr. Daimler and Mr. Benz would have to respect this car for its engineering excellence and consummate comfort. I, for one, have yet to drive a car of comparable quality regardless of price.
Well, as you just saw, steel nerves are definitely an asset if you're going to shoot a segment of Test Drive on Motoring 90. Okay, we're now going to leave the skid pad and we're going to head to the garage and join our resident mechanic, Bill Gardiner.
Over the past 10 years or so, overhead camshaft engines have become more and more popular on domestic and import cars. And the most popular method of driving an overhead camshaft is a small belt like this. It's called a timing belt. It's a rubber belt, and you can see that it's got teeth. And those teeth are used to synchronize the crankshaft, camshaft, and distributor positions. Now, all timing belts are located right behind this front engine cover here. So in order to gain access to it, we have to remove a number of parts. If your car happens to be a front-wheel drive model, the engine's in transversely, and the cover would be located at one of either two ends of that engine. Now, a couple of interesting things to note regarding timing belts. Number one, some engines are of a freewheeling design like this one, in that if this belt ever breaks, the camshaft and crankshaft can turn independent of each other, or one or the other can stop independent of the other without any engine damage occurring. Some cars aren't like that, however. For example, early Ford Escorts and Mercury Lynxes had a decal right on the front cover stating that this belt should be replaced every 80,000 kilometers or severe engine damage may result. Those designs were not freewheeling, and if the belt broke, the pistons would crash into the valves and bend all the valves. You're looking at expensive engine repair when that occurs. On this particular car, we can see the number one enemy of the timing belt right here, and that's oil mess. This engine's leaking a bit of oil, and that lubricant's getting to the timing belt. It's going to soften the belt, and then the belt teeth will shear easily, or the belt will soften and break. You can see a little bit of indication of that here on the cover. Some of that oil mess is spewed out here. So if you see any signs of oil or coolant leakage around the front cover of your engine, you better attend to it quickly, because it's going to get to the timing belt and cause it to fail prematurely. Now, because this particular car is a standard transmission, we don't have any transmission oil cooler rooted in the radiator to worry about. We can run the car briefly with the radiator removed, and you can see very well how this timing belt operates to drive the camshaft. This one's a little bit loose. You can see it buzzing around more than it should, and that was one of the problems. It was slapping the cover and making a noise. Now, some cars use the water pump to actually tension the backside of the belt. This one uses just an idler wheel, but many cars use the water pump to tension the slack side of the belt. Now, if your overhead camshaft car has logged in excess of 100,000 miles, it's quite possible that that belt's living on borrowed time. So if you see any of those telltale signs we mentioned earlier, oil or coolant leakage, or you're thinking of an extended trip and your car has high mileage, you've never changed this belt, it's possibly a maintenance item you should consider replacing. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardiner for Motoring 90.
When Motoring 90 returns, let the buyer beware.
Well, there's Graham coming out of another car wash, and you know, sometimes I think Graham spends as much time in the car washes on test drive as he does testing the cars. And you know, thousands of cars are sold every week in North America, and as in any business, some of the customers are happy, and some are not so happy. Well, Steve Grant has a story about a gentleman who definitely is in the latter group.
In March of 1988, Terry Walsh was in the market for a sports car. He decided to settle on this 1981 Datsun 280ZX Turbo. He only got to drive the car for 3 weeks, but yet here we are a year and a half later, and this car's basically been left to die. And Terry's still paying money for it.
Sometimes when you have your heart set on a car, you develop tunnel vision. And it doesn't matter what anyone says, nothing will sway your decision. When Terry Walsh found the car of his dreams, it was in a dark and dingy auto body shop. An agreement was made to replace some worn-out tires, and 2 weeks later, Terry drove home his brand new 280ZX. That's when the problems began.
When I drove home that night, I noticed the horn didn't work when some guy stepped off the road and I almost hit him. I hit the horn and nothing happened. And in the 401, I noticed there was a shimmy still. Like the car had to hold the steering wheel. I was going like this with the damn thing going down the 401.
You were under the impression it was certified. You had the certification notice then.
Totally. I thought the car was completely safe. You know, you go buy a car and the guy comes up to you with a certification right in front of Ministry of Transport, no less, that you've figured the car's going to be fully certified. So when I took it home, I started experiencing difficulties with him trying to get the horn fixed and the shimmy, and then of course the exhaust started to leak a week afterwards also, and he said that he had a garage he wanted me to take it to. Well, I took it to his garage hoping, this guy was going to come through on this, and it didn't turn out that way. I took it to Nissan, and then they sent me somewhere else, and that's when we know some undercarriage damage to the vehicle.
You mentioned the undercarriage damage.
Rust. There was holes inside in the vehicle, and that's when I talked to him again, and I told him what was going on. He said, yeah, he would get it fixed, and he started giving me a run around again, so that's when I called the Ministry of Transport.
Now, you called the Ministry of Transport, you went down to show the car to them, and then what happened?
They just yanked the sticker off the car right then and there. They said it wasn't safe to drive it in 2 blocks. They said if it wasn't for me turning the car in, I could have been literally killed in the vehicle, and they wouldn't have known why. Damage found when I had the car on the hoist. When I checked it out, it started up in here. I presume from when I had the shimmy on the 401 and such, is that the whole strut here is about ready to cave right on in. The whole assembly right around it is all rotted right out. So at any given time, a hard bump or anything like that, I was told that the whole thing would just cave right in. The other side's identical. Same thing. So I've gone down the road with the whole front end could have fallen right out of the car any given time.
Because this case is still before the courts, the law prevents us from naming the person who sold Terry Walsh the car. And we wanted to get some more background into how this car could possibly be certified in the first place. But the mechanic who did the job has left the province, and apparently the business. But after talking to mechanics who do this job on a regular basis, they tell us that a certification, when done properly, involves a thorough examination of the car.
Well, first of all, I'm going to make sure, I'm going to check the tie rods, ball joints, all the front end. I'm going to make sure, check the exhaust, there's no leak you have for the carbon exhaust. Second, I'm going to make sure for the brakes. And I'm going to try to be 200% sure what I'm doing on the brakes because it's very, very important.
Has it ever happened that you get from people who sell used cars or people selling cars that they ever ask you to certify a car that's not safe? Has that ever happened?
Yes, it's been happening, not in this garage here, but I was working to another garage a few years back. The car was worth nothing, and somebody was forcing me to do mechanic fitness, and then I refused myself because, if I do, I'm going to lose my bread, and it's against the licensed mechanic, and more problem going to be in the future, and you cannot joke with the government,
Now, how much money did this car cost you when you initially bought it?
$6,500.
Did you pay cash at the time?
I paid part cash and a loan on the vehicle.
So on a loan, that means you're obviously still making payments on the car, but
Yeah.
once the car was taken away, what happened then?
I was obligated to make the loan payment still, even though the car wasn't in my possession anymore. So, and he's just laughing right now.
So then you had to buy another vehicle from the vehicle that was taken away. So
Exactly.
all told now, take away the $6,000, almost $7,000 you paid for this car, you're paying off the loan. How much do you figure this car has cost you over the 2 years, almost 2 years?
Oh, about $14,000, at least.
There's a couple of real obvious problems with this car. The McPherson struts, the holes in the muffler, some of the rust in the undercarriage. A lot of people will say, how could you possibly buy this car in the first place?
I didn't have the car up on the hoist. I saw the vehicle on the ground in a buy shop. It was dark in there. Unless you take the vehicle in and had started looking underneath it, you wouldn't have noticed. I wouldn't have noticed until that day I had it up on the hoist.
Does it make you angry to look at this car now? Does it make you upset? How does it make you feel?
Angry was, I guess the anger's gone now at this point. It's almost helplessness because of all the nonsense going on in the court. This guy seems to have everything going his way. And I've been told at this point that's how it works, until such time we do get him in court to have our day. It's all in his favor. Originally, I just wanted all my money out of this. Now I want my money, plus I want to see something done with him, something to prevent this happening, to someone else.
Here's the perfect gizmo for those who have everything but friends. The remote starter switch eliminates the need for someone else to start your engine while you work under the hood. With the ignition turned off, connect the remote to the positive side of the battery and the starter relay or solenoid. And make sure your transmission is in park and your parking brake is on. As for Motoring 90's opinion of the remote starter,
I'm Jim Kenzie, and next on Kenzie's Corner, mirror, mirror on your car. I can't think of anything that rhymes with that.
Kenzie's Corner with Jim Kenzie.
This is the view that most people get in the side mirrors of their car. They adjust the mirror so they see the side of their vehicle in the mirror, but when's the last time the side of your own car came up and hit you? This is what you want to see. Well, not me, but the car that would be out here in your blind spot. You see, these aren't really rear view mirrors, they're side view mirrors. The point is to give you a view of objects that are behind what you can see in your peripheral vision, but what you can't yet see in your rear view mirror. There's an easy way to tell that your side mirrors are properly adjusted. For the driver's side, just lean out your window, and if you can just see the side of your car, then you know that one's okay. For the passenger side, you got to lean way over like this, and if you can just see the side of your car, then you know that one's okay. So don't let poor mirror positioning be a reflection on your driving habits. This is Jim Kenzie for Motoring 90.
Well, as you can see, they are still hard at work on Test Drive for Motoring 90, but our work is finished, at least for now. We'll be back next week, so make sure you join us as we motor into the 90s on Motoring 90.
Motoring 90 is brought to you by Quaker State. The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.